On August 12, 1985, Japan Airlines Flight 123 became the deadliest single aircraft accident in history, claiming the lives of 520 people and leaving only 4 survivors. The Boeing 747-SR was on a routine domestic flight from Tokyo Haneda Airport to Osaka Itami Airport when disaster struck. Just 12 minutes after takeoff, a catastrophic structural failure led to a rapid decompression, rendering the aircraft nearly uncontrollable. Despite the crew's desperate attempts to stabilize the aircraft, it ultimately crashed into the mountainous terrain of Mount Takamagahara. The tragedy was later attributed to a faulty repair performed years earlier, which had severely weakened the aircraft's structure. Japan Airlines Flight 123 was operated using a Boeing 747-SR, a short-range variant of the iconic 747 designed for high-density domestic routes. On this fateful flight, the aircraft carried 509 passengers and 15 crew members, totaling 524 individuals on board. The flight was scheduled to depart from Tokyo Haneda Airport at 6:12 p.m. local time and arrive at Osaka Itami Airport, a journey that typically lasted less than an hour. The crew, including Captain Masami Takahama, First Officer Yutaka Sasaki, and Flight Engineer Hiroshi Fukuda, were experienced aviators. However, none of them could have anticipated the dire emergency they would soon face, due to an undetected flaw in the aircraft's structure. The structural failure that led to the disaster could be traced back to an incident that occurred in 1978, when the same aircraft suffered a tail strike during a landing. The damage affected the aft pressure bulkhead, a crucial component responsible for maintaining cabin pressure. Boeing performed the necessary repairs, but investigators later discovered that the repair had been improperly executed. Instead of using a single continuous doubler plate, engineers had used 2 separate pieces, which created a weak point. Over the years, repeated pressurization cycles in normal operations caused fatigue cracks to develop. Ultimately, the bulkhead failed mid-flight, allowing explosive decompression to destroy the aircraft's vertical stabilizer and sever all 4 hydraulic lines, making it nearly impossible to control the plane. At 6:24 p.m., just 12 minutes after takeoff, a loud explosion rocked the aircraft as the aft pressure bulkhead failed. The sudden decompression tore off the vertical stabilizer, and without it, the aircraft's aerodynamic stability was severely compromised. Additionally, all 4 hydraulic systems were damaged, leaving the pilots unable to control the plane through conventional means. The aircraft began oscillating wildly, making it difficult to maintain altitude. Captain Takahama and his crew fought desperately to stabilize the aircraft, using engine thrust adjustments to attempt limited maneuverability. Despite their valiant efforts, the aircraft continued to drift off course. Air traffic controllers tried to guide the pilots toward an emergency landing, but the aircraft remained unresponsive to normal control inputs. After 32 minutes of struggle, Japan Airlines Flight 123 crashed into the remote, forested slopes of Mount Takamagahara at 6:56 p.m. The impact caused a massive explosion, sending flames and debris across the mountainside. The isolated crash site made immediate rescue efforts difficult, and tragically, reports suggest that some passengers initially survived the impact, but succumbed to their injuries overnight due to the delayed response. By the time rescuers reached the site the next morning, only 4 people were found alive, miraculously surviving amidst the wreckage. The devastating accident left Japan and the aviation world in mourning, prompting a thorough investigation into what had gone so terribly wrong. The rescue operation following the crash of Japan Airlines Flight 123 was marred by delays and miscommunication, which tragically may have cost additional lives. Shortly after the aircraft disappeared from radar, reports emerged that a large explosion had been seen in the mountainous region of Gunma Prefecture. However, initial search efforts were hindered by poor visibility and rugged terrain, leading authorities to misinterpret the crash site's exact location. Furthermore, a United States Air Force C-130 crew had spotted the wreckage shortly after the crash and offered assistance, but Japanese officials declined their help, opting to conduct their own rescue operation. By the time rescue teams finally reached the site the following morning, it was too late for most of the passengers. The scene was one of devastation, with the aircraft's remains scattered across the mountainside. Miraculously, 4 individuals were found alive among the wreckage: a mother and her young daughter, along with 2 other women. These survivors had been fortunate enough to be seated in a section of the fuselage that remained relatively intact. Unfortunately, it was later suggested that some passengers may have initially survived the impact, but succumbed to their injuries overnight due to the delayed response. The inefficiencies in the rescue efforts prompted widespread criticism and a re-evaluation of Japan's emergency response protocols. The Japan Aircraft Accident Investigation Commission conducted a thorough examination of the crash and ultimately determined that the disaster was caused by a faulty repair performed by Boeing following a 1978 tail strike incident. Instead of using a single continuous reinforcement plate to fix the damaged aft pressure bulkhead, Boeing engineers had mistakenly used 2 separate plates, leaving a vulnerable seam. Over the years, the repeated pressurization and depressurization cycles of regular flights caused the flawed repair to weaken, leading to a catastrophic rupture. When the bulkhead failed, the explosive decompression tore off the vertical stabilizer and severed all 4 hydraulic lines, rendering the aircraft uncontrollable. The investigation held Boeing responsible for the improper repair and highlighted Japan Airlines' failure to detect the growing structural weakness during routine maintenance checks. The report also criticized the airline's emergency response measures, particularly the delay in rescue operations. As a result, both Boeing and Japan Airlines faced intense scrutiny, and the findings prompted immediate calls for improvements in aircraft maintenance and repair procedures. The Japan Airlines Flight 123 disaster led to significant changes in aviation safety regulations worldwide. Authorities mandated stricter inspection protocols for aircraft repairs, with particular focus on structural integrity and fatigue monitoring. Boeing implemented new quality control measures to prevent similar errors in future repairs, while Japan Airlines overhauled its maintenance and safety procedures to ensure that no such oversight would occur again. The impact on Japan Airlines was profound, as the airline suffered a severe loss of public trust. In the aftermath, several executives resigned, and the company undertook a major safety reform initiative. Boeing also faced reputational damage, reinforcing the necessity of stringent aircraft repair procedures. Memorials were established to honor the victims, with the most notable being the Osutaka Ridge Memorial near the crash site. Each year, families and loved ones gather to pay tribute to those who perished in the disaster. The tragedy remains a somber reminder of the consequences of overlooked structural flaws and the importance of rigorous maintenance practices in the aviation industry. The crash of Japan Airlines Flight 123 was a devastating event that left an indelible mark on aviation history. It highlighted the deadly consequences of improper aircraft repairs and underscored the necessity of stringent safety inspections and quality control measures. The lessons learned from this tragedy have since contributed to improvements in aircraft maintenance procedures, accident investigations, and emergency response strategies. Despite the sorrow it brought, the disaster ultimately led to enhanced safety protocols that continue to protect passengers today. It serves as a sobering reminder of the responsibilities that airlines, manufacturers, and regulatory authorities bear in ensuring that air travel remains as safe as possible. Japan Airlines Flight 123 will always be remembered not only as a heartbreaking tragedy, but also as a pivotal moment in the ongoing pursuit of aviation safety